All right, so it is now almost 5 minutes past 1 p.m. here in Bangkok. So I would like to officially welcome everyone. We will begin the session now. Thank you for joining us today for the launch of the Tech Up International Fellowship on Technical Standards for the IETF 125 in Shenzhen, China. Before we start, I'd like to first introduce myself. So my name is Pavel Farhan. I am originally from Bangladesh, but based in Thailand, and I am an associate for the IO Foundation. And I will also be introducing my colleagues to you as we go through the slides. A bit of housekeeping first. So before we begin the core of our session, I'd like to direct your attention to the two critical housekeeping rules, which is our code of conduct and the Datham House rule. So first, the code of conduct, of course, we want to make sure that this remains a safe and professional environment for everyone. We expect all participants to engage and respect each other. And secondly, regarding the privacy of our discussions, we operate under the Datham House rules. For those familiar with the traditional Chatham House rules, this is our more digital age evolution of that principle. So in professional terms, the Datham House rules means that you're encouraged to share the information and insights gained here today, but essentially, please do not post content online that identifies others or specific contributions unless you have their consent to do so. So we want to foster an environment of open and honest sharing, and that only happens when we all commit to protecting each other's digital privacy. To start with the agenda that we have today, we'll start with the welcome and introductions, of course, by Jean. Following up with that, Yug will talk about the fellowship and we'll go back to John again for the logistics of the fellowship, and then I'll do the conclusions in the end. So the objectives of today. As you know, by the end of this session, you should be able to understand what this fellowship, understand why this fellowship matters to you, what it is, understand the logistics involved, as well as how can you proceed with your applications. So I am delighted to, of course, let you know that we have very capable individuals, my colleagues, Yug, John, and Irina here, who will be helping you get through and answer all your questions for today. Talking about questions, Q&A is anytime. So whenever you feel like you have a question, you can either raise up your hand and we will unmute you so that you can say your question out loud, or you can write your questions in the chat if you feel comfortable that way. While we are presenting, it is encouraged that you mute your microphone so that we do not interrupt each other. And thank you so much for abiding to these rules. Now I'd like to pass over to John F. Carroll. He's our founder and CEO of the IO Foundation based in Malaysia, and he's going to get you through what our organization does and why would you like to apply for this fellowship.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Pavel. Thanks, everyone, for joining this session. My name is Jean-François Quéralt, and I am the founder and CEO of this organization, the IO Foundation. And essentially, we wanted to give you a very brief introduction about what is it that the organization does. So the IO Foundation is an NGO that was founded in 2018, and we are essentially dedicated to the advocacy of data-centric digital rights, which essentially is an attempt to make sure that technology is built in a way that is protective to the final user by design. We do this by engaging very actively with a number of standard developing organizations and to attempt to make sure that as many engineers as possible join these environments. And that's part of the work that we do, and also the reason why we launched this fellowship. And up to that, I shall pass it to Hugh. Take it away.
Yes, thank you, John, and thank you, Pavel. So let me first give you a brief overview of what the fellowship is about, and then we'll talk a little bit about standardization and standardization ecosystem so that you're familiar with the content as well. John, yeah. So this fellowship is related to the Internet Engineering Task Force, the IETF, as it is popularly known. The fellowship itself will run from February and March. There will be online components to it, and the final in-person component, which will be on-site in Shenzhen in China, where the IETF 125 is happening from 14th March to 20th of March. And we'll talk about the benefits and the requirements in detail later on in the program today. But it's important to understand that IETF is a premier internet standardization platform. So you have experts and professionals with years and decades of experience from big corporations, big researchers, universities coming here and discussing about the internet technologies. So it's a great opportunity to meet these people. And of course, we'll have trainers from TIOF, we'll have other mentors from the IETF ecosystem that you will get to network with and interact with. John, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So who is this fellowship for? This fellowship is for students. You could be a bachelor student or a graduate student, especially if your interests relate to standards or networking protocols, cybersecurity, and such. So I want to break this down into two sort of subfields. One would be the technical field. So if you are a computer science student, if you're an informatics student, then you would really benefit from participating in IETF and learning about these core internet standards that form the backbone of the internet. And then you can understand how it sort of interweaves with different technologies that you learn in your program. And then eventually, when you get into the industry or into research, you'll understand how important these building blocks are to form the technologies that we use every day. But this program, this fellowship is also beneficial for people from other disciplines such as social sciences. Like if you're interested in technology policy, if you're interested in media and communication studies, um, there is a international relations dimension as well, because some of these organizations have a national membership. So understanding the standards ecosystem and then diving deep into one particular organization gives you this holistic view, irrespective of whether you're from a technical background or you're from a social science background. Ideally, however, if you are from a social science background, then it would help if you have a research orientation, because this is ultimately a technical organization. So if you don't have a clear idea of what you want to do in this organization, that you may not benefit as much. But if you are from a technical field, then there are a number of working groups in the IETF that you can participate in, and you can find your own niche. You can see where your interests align, and it will be quite rewarding. The fellowship is also open to lecturers and researchers. Next slide, please, John. So why should you join? I think standardization is really at the cutting edge of technology. It is where technology is developed. It is where technology is refined to the extent that people can widely use it, implement it, and therefore it would be incredibly rewarding to understand how these standards are developed and maintained over time, what kind of considerations go into understanding how a standard evolves over time, what kind of uh, issues are being encountered in the field, and how that should be incorporated and solved in the standardization process. You can directly influence and advance internet standards. You can participate in the process, get involved get hands-on experience, gain exposure to cutting-edge topic. I think a lot of students often, while they're studying in their bachelor studies or in their graduate studies, sometimes find that the curriculum is not really at par with what is actually happening in the industry out there. But when you participate in a standards organization, you can be sure that you're dealing with topics that are relevant today and tomorrow. Then, of course, IETF is a unique ecosystem in itself. We'll talk more about IETF later on, but just participating in IETF will give you a very different and unique kind of experience. You can, of course, build your professional network because, as I mentioned, that people from a lot of different companies, big companies, small companies, different research institutes, universities come here. So you can, of course, network with these people and expand your professional network. And finally, you get to become part of the TechUp community. I'm sure we'll also touch upon that later in the program. But TechUp community is TIOF's own community where we try to bring together technologists who have an interest in making sure that technologies is safe by design. Next slide, please, John. So now let me give you a little bit of overview into the content of what the fellowship is about and what you'll be learning over the next, from February and March if you do join the fellowship program. So what are technical standards? Technical standards are really these formalized documents that detail specifications about how a technology is supposed to work, how it is supposed to interface with other technologies, what kind of performance criteria need to be adhered to, and all of this. It's a detailed document that gives you all information about how you can implement a particular technology into your product or your application. So the most important part of technical why do we do standardization is to ensure interoperability. Think about it. If you did not have the USB-C type standardized, then I mean, we've seen this. Everyone is running around with different chargers, and when your phone is out of battery, you're asking 10 different people, or do you have this type of a pin? Can I charge it? So now, with mostly USB-C being the standard industry wide, you have solved that problem. You have this interoperability. You can use chargers of different companies and whatnot. So this is the primary sort of motive behind standardization, is that even if it's a different people, different companies, different countries, different geographies making a particular product, we can make sure when there is this common set of specifications that are consensus based, that everybody knows when they create a technology that this technology will interoperate with other technology that is out there. So interoperability is the foundational reason for standardization. Then, of course, that there are other metrics, like ensuring security. What kind of minimum criteria needs to be in a technology to make sure that it is secure? What kind of minimum criteria need to be met to ensure quality in your product? How do you make it compatible with the state of the art? How do you make sure that there is some minimum reliability in your product? It might be a great product that breaks down in a couple of days. So you need to have these standards to make sure that your product or your application is interoperable with others, but also it meets certain benchmarks of quality, reliability, and security. And I think the ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve at the IO Foundation is to make sure that standards help you protect by design. So since standards is foundational to the technology development process, if we make sure that a standard is developed with security in mind, with certain protections inbuilt into the technology, we can be sure that any technology that is based on these specifications also protects the end users by design. John, can you go to the next one? So we talk about standardization, but where does it happen? So there are a host of standards developing organizations out there that develop these technical standards with participation of different countries, with participation of different companies, with participation of different experts. And one of these such standardization organizations is the Internet Engineering Task Force that will be the focus of this fellowship. John, can we go to the next slide? So we talked a little bit about already what SDOs achieve. They give you a site for where standardization happens, and thereby it enables interoperability. It ensures collaboration of different stakeholders so that they're not running in divergent directions. They can come together, they can discuss what is important, and they can agree upon the core specifications of a technology on which then you can build your own creative products. And what this also does is it reduces cost, because you don't because people know exactly what they need to make, and they don't need to cater to demands of all different kind of designs. They know the core design, and then they can build the products around that can be used in a range of different applications. Next slide, please. So the Internet Engineering Task Force. Um, the Internet Engineering Task Force is a global standardization uh, body that creates standards related to the internet. It creates voluntary standards, so it's not enforced, but given the weight of IETF, it is usually taken as the default standard in the internet ecosystem. And it really shapes the development of internet technology. So IETF has a number of working groups that focus on different technologies specifically. If you might be interested in networking, or you might be interested specifically in encryption, you might be interested in some security standards. So there are different working groups within the IETF that you can participate in, depending upon your interest and your expertise. Alongside the IETF, we also have its sister organization, which is the IRTF, which is Internet Research Task Force. And Internet Research Task Force, like the IETF, also has research groups instead of working groups. And that is usually focused on topics of research which are not currently widely implemented in the world, but are focusing on technologies that may come uh, into wide usage. So they focus on some of these research topics of upcoming technologies, and they also create documents which are basically research documents, unlike standards themselves. um, ITF has an open community. It's an individual participation model. So if you don't need to be a representative of a country or a company. You can go there as an individual, and everyone will treat you based on what you bring to the table, and not the kind of background that you have. It's an open community. All the documents, all the discussions that happen at the IETF are available for everyone to see. This is a little bit unique in the standardization ecosystem, because sometimes these organizations tend to be really closed off and only open to a few people, or few countries, or few companies, and sometimes there are huge membership fees. But IETF is completely open and transparent, and that is what uh, is the community that you will have access to, where people can freely talk about technology, and discuss and come to a consensus on how to build it forward. Next slide, please, John. So IETF and the global SDO ecosystem. So what are some of the other standards developing organizations that do work related to the internet and telecommunications technology? There is ICANN, which is not specifically a standardization organization, but it does some very similar work to establish a certain standards for how the domain name system may operate, or how different policies around allotment of IP addresses and such happen. There's W3C, which focuses on the application level standardization. So your HTTP is something that happens at W3C. Then of course TCP/IP, which is the core networking related stuff. That is what happens at the IETF. And then there are telecommunication standards like about radio frequencies and so on, that happen at ITUT, and a lot of computing standards also, like architecture of computers. Those kind of stuff happen at IEEE, and this is having this kind of division of labor um, is quite desirable in the standards ecosystem, so that experts in a particular field can gather and focus on their core areas um, where they have expertise. So with that, I'll pass back to Pavel to take us forward.
Thank you, Yug. Thank you so much. I think you've covered extensively a lot of the stuff that I'm sure that our participants were eager to know. So let's pause for a moment. And Irina, do we have any pressing questions from the chat? I do believe that there was a question. So if it's okay, let me just read it out loud. So it was in the Q&A. It's from Parvej Khan. He asks us, I have around 10 years of professional experience. Am I eligible to apply for this program? John, if you could answer this.
Yes, absolutely. We don't have any specific distinction between newcomers and people with expertise. Both of them have reasons to be there, and we have reasons for both of them to be there. We want to be able to support people who have never been into the environment, because it's good to have new blood, if you will, joining the SDO ecosystem. And at the same time, who people who, even if they have very long careers or have been involved in the past with the SDO ecosystem, either the IETF or other SDOs, it doesn't really matter, that may want to just return or haven't had the opportunity to do it for financial or professional reasons. None of that really matters to us. What's important is identifying people who are interested in supporting standards as they move forward, and make sure that they are um, protective by design for the final user. That's all we are interested in. Pavel, you're muted. Pavel, you're muted.
My apologies. So thank you so much, John, for answering the question. I'm sure, Parvej, that you have gotten to know the answer to that, as well as we definitely do encourage you to apply. We do have time for one more question before we move on to the next part of our session. So if any of our participants has a question, you can put it in the chat, in the Q&A, or even unmute yourself to ask the question. So going once, going twice. And we will go back to John then. So John, please take it away with the logistics.
Thank you, Pavel. So as you were mentioning, we're going to be looking into the logistics of the fellowship, and we're going to be trying to explain as much as we can for you to have a general idea about what how the fellowship is going to be structured and what are going to be the requirements and the benefits you get out of it. So let's start with a general overview of the timeline. The fellowship is constructed upon 4 different sections, or 4 different phases. The first one is going to be a selection, where we're going to be selecting the cohort of fellows that are going to be participating in the fellowship. Then we will move into a preparation phase, where we'll be providing training and support to be able to maximize the participation in the IETF 125. Then we will go into the actual participation to the event. And finally, we'll close the fellowship with an evaluation phase, in which we will be receiving the submission of your reports as well as feedback upon your experience in the IETF 125. The selection phase is going to be having these particular milestones. So the application will open today, officially today, right after this stream, and will run until the deadline of the 25th of January. After that, we'll be deliberating internally with the committee to select the cohort, and the cohort will be announced on the 2nd of February. In terms of the preparation, once we move into that phase, the objective will be to prepare you to maximize your experience into the IETF, so understanding better the SDO ecosystem, understanding better how the IETF functions, etc., etc. And for that, and also to finalize all the logistics for you to participate in person, for those of you who are going to be participating in person in Shenzhen itself. And for that, we will have 4 prep sessions of approximately 2 hours each. The first one would be on the 13th of February, followed by the 21st of February, a third one on the 28th of February, and finally a last one on the 7th of March. We are working on finalizing the guest instructors that we're going to be having with us. They will be people from the internet ecosystem, so from the standard developing ecosystem, and most particularly from the IETF. And in the first session, we will also have an onboarding for everything that has to do with the logistics for the tickets for the IETF. I'll get a little bit more into detail into that soon enough. The first session, all the sessions are going to be conducted online, with the slight exception of session number 1, which will be conducted in a hybrid mode and hosted by one of our partners in this fellowship, which is UMN Universitas. Help me here, Vanessa. I can never pronounce the name. Irena.
Universitas Multimedia Nusantara.
Nusantara. That's it. That's the one. Thank you. They will be gracefully hosting this this session, and the rest of ones will be online. Of course, we're providing all the details to the selected cohort. Then we'll move into the participation phase of the fellowship, in which our objective will be to support you as much as we can into your participation in the IETF 125, and to maximize your networking opportunities. We will make sure that you can get to meet people who are relevant for your fields of expertise or interest, and this phase will be structured across traveling into Shenzhen for those who are doing it in person, and that would happen on the 12th of March. I'm gonna put here an asterisk in the sense that we still don't know if maybe the 11th, and that would be for logistic reasons in terms of flights, when do they arrive and not. And the reason is because on the 13th we will have a training bites session in person with the university in Shenzhen that we are currently negotiating with. And the actual event on the IETF 125 will start on the 14th and will run until the 20th. The first 2 days of the IETF is what's known as the hackathon and the code sprint. And there's plenty of other small activities during that weekend. And then the actual sessions, the more meeting/conference part of the IETF is between Monday to Friday. And then on the 21st, we will travel out and return to our own home bases. Then for the evaluation part, on the 25th, there will be an assignment that needs to be returned. We will do a review call upon the whole fellowship, so everything that happened during the prep sessions, as well as the IETF, and then the assignments. And we will issue, for those of you who have successfully passed all the requirements for the fellowship, we will be issuing a digital certificate to recognize that passing. The idea here in this phase is to evaluate your participation, try to make sure that we have done our job and that you have also make the most of the experience, and also to evaluate the fellowship so that we can know how we can improve it moving forward. Now, the benefits for you for participating in the fellowship are explained quite extensively in the info page of the fellowship. I believe, Irena, you may have the link to the info page you can put in the chat now. That would be very useful. Thank you. I can summarize it, getting into all the details that you're going to be benefiting of a series of training sessions, not only the prep ones, but also the training bites that will provide you with good knowledge on how the general standard developing organizations ecosystem functions, what do a number of organizations dedicate themselves to, as well as how to participate in the IETF moving forward, how it works, what's the governance model, the kind of different working groups or research groups, if it's the IRTF, that are composed into the organization, and so forth. Depending on the modalities, I will also discuss this a little bit later. There will also be coverage on flights, accommodation, F&B on location, etc., etc. We will definitely maximize, as mentioned, your networking opportunities. We'll be trying to make sure that you have the chance to meet relevant people in the IETF community and the broader SDO community. You will be also awarded with a TIF welcome pack and our exclusive fellow t-shirt, which we hope to be kind of an eye candy, let's say. That's what we are aiming at. We want to be easy to spot. And not only you will get the digital certificate that I was mentioning before, with which you can prove that you have successfully completed your fellowship, but also you will be granted access to the TechUp community, which is a community that managed by the IO Foundation. That is a collection of individuals and organizations that are working towards making sure that technology is protective by design. In terms of responsibilities, there will be a number of things that you need to accomplish during the fellowship if you are selected as part of the cohort. For once, you will have to attend to all the prep sessions, as well as the training bites session in Shenzhen if you are participating in person, and you will have daily check-ins when we are in the IETF. Those check-ins, I want to reassure everybody, are not going to be very extensive. Days at the IETF tend to be somehow a mix between very exciting and very busy, and you don't want to overload people with too many things by the end of the day. But 5-10 minutes to make sure that everyone is okay, that there might be some questions, and get some feedback, and again give you as much support as we can on a daily basis. There will be a fellowship report to submit by the end, as you saw in the timeline. And we also hope that you're going to be collaborating with other TIF members to also provide help across the fellowship itself. And well, I don't know that needs to be said, but just in case I will say it, there will be an expectation of you acting responsibly in accordance to the TIF Code of Conduct, and as well the IETF LCC's Code of Conduct. So the IETF also has their own conduct for the meeting, and you will be reminded of it every single session. That's part of their SOP, and there's expectation that you're going to be complying with both. You don't have to be overly concerned about this. The only real general rule is just be a decent person. Just respect others when they're giving different ideas of yours, and try to participate without cutting others. That kind of thing. Okay, so there's nothing mysterious into these codes of conduct. Now, how to apply for the fellowship? Irena, I believe you also have the URL for this. In the info page that Irena put before in the chat, you will also have a button now that leads you to the form. The form will be in 3 steps, of the application will be in 3 steps. You will first introduce some basic data of yours, and to verify your email, you will receive a confirmation email on your inbox, and that confirmation email will have a link to the rest of the questions that you will need to submit to us. Those are the 3 steps. Once you finalize the registration, you will get a confirmation. And as we go through the selection process, you will also get notification confirmations as to whether you've been accepted or not to the cohort, or if we realize that we require some extra information or some extra confirmations from you, we will be in touch. Now, you may have heard me said something about modalities, and I would like to spend a little bit of time on this. So there was a lot of conversation inside the team as to what kind of support we were able to provide for this fellowship, and how far did we want to go in providing that support. And we decided we want to go all in, and we wanted to provide as many opportunities as possible for people to participate into the fellowship, depending of a number of circumstances. So you will see there's 4 categories, and essentially category number 1 and number 2 correspond to fellows participating in person in the IETF 1 to 5, and categories 3 and 4 are people participating remotely to the IETF 1 to 5 and the fellowship. Now, the difference between each of one of the numbers is that the odd numbers, in this case category 1 and category 3, would be fully funded by this fellowship program, whereas categories 2 and 4, the even numbers, will be self-funded. Why do we mean by that? We will have a subset of the cohort that will be fully funded by the fellowship, and that will be category 1 and category 3. Although category 1, of course, will have travel and accommodation and so forth in Shenzhen. Now, what we thought was that there would be certain individuals who may want to participate, and either they have the capacity to self-fund themselves and to visit Shenzhen, and maybe they want to be staying a little bit longer or getting earlier and handle themselves, and they would still want to enjoy the benefits of actually participating in the fellowship and everything that we're going to be providing in terms of training and so forth. And we actually didn't see any reason as to why we would stop those individuals from participating in the fellowship. And so we have enabled that possibility. And those would be category 2, people who are going to be in person over there, not covered by the financial support of the fellowship. And in the case of category 4, who will participate remotely, also not covered by the financial support of the fellowship. Now, how does it distribute? So in terms of logistics, there's essentially 5 big concepts to keep in mind. One is the ticket for the IETF. I'll explain a bit more now. The transportation, the accommodation, F&B, so food basically, and the location of the participation. As I was mentioning before, number 1 and number 2 will participate. The site of participation will be the IETF event venue, whereas the 3 and the 4, we will host them in our Argos clubs. Argos clubs are clubs that we are setting up in a number of universities in Indonesia, and we will be encouraging people participating remotely to be in those spots, because we're going to be providing support to those remote participants and provide an environment of collaboration in the club venue. Now, starting from the ticket side, and you can see that there's a number of comments there that I need to provide. So allow me to go very quickly on my notes over here to have them at hand. Yes. All right. So in the case of category number 1 for the modality, when we say that the ticket is covered, at the moment, we can only cover for students, but we are actively working, so for the ticket, we are actively working to also cover professionals, so non-student participants. And the reason this is the case requires a little bit of explanation about what is the model of functioning of the IETF. As opposed to many other standard developing organizations, the IETF does not have a business model of itself. Meaning to say, they don't generate money for the organization. That's why everyone over there is a volunteer. They do get donations and to get some budget, of course, to be able to run the events, but they don't have a regular stream of income, as opposed to, let's say, the ICANN, who has a certain amount incoming for every single domain name that is either purchased or renewed. And as a result, the IETF actually requires to pay for the events, for the venues, for the F&B and everything they put together. And they do a lot of work on that. And so the prices for professionals versus students are widely different, are very, very different. We can definitely accommodate students, but not at the moment professionals when it comes to the ticket. That said, and that's why there's a comment there, we are actively working for that to be not a problem. We are attempting to reach out to funders and to secure funding to also be able to provide that support for non-students. And again, this is a response to the effort that I was mentioning before, where we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to join the fellowship. In case of the transportation, in here the comment is that because of the complexity of handling so many people that we expect to be able to have on the fellowship, that it's a foreign country, that there's going to be visa requirements, etc., etc. We will be providing, or we will be outsourcing the management of this side of the logistics to an external organization, to a travel agency. And so you should know that there is going to be no flexibility for those who are under category 1 to fly in or fly out in different times, etc., etc. We also have a responsibility. We need to make sure that everyone gets into the on-site safely and returns home safely as well. So in this particular case, it will be everything will be managed by an external agency. When it comes to accommodation, we are working for category 1 to be hosted together by a host university in Shenzhen that will be at a reasonable distance from the IETF venue. And in any case, the IETF venue is just right above a metro station. So in terms of transport, that's not going to be a problem at all. For F&B, there will be pocket money for people to be able to take care of their own food needs. However, the IETF does provide quite a good amount of options in terms of F&B along the day. There's different moments where food is served. I mean, snacks, but you get filled quite well. There's drinks pretty much all over the day. So water and basic drinks not going to be a problem. And on top of that, this particular meeting does have a host, which means there is a company, I believe it's Huawei, that is going to be paying for a lot of the logistics of the meeting for the IETF, and therefore all of those things are going to be assured. Now, when it comes to category 2, as mentioned before, we will see what we can do for, let's say, so category 2 is in-person self-funded. Should that be, for instance, a student, for the price of the ticket, if we can actually manage to cover that, we will. All right. So we will try to really support financially as much as we can. It will very much depend on how much funds we are able to raise up to that point. There will be no coverage for transportation, accommodation, and F&B. However, that whoever is self-funding does their own, and they are expected to be attending to the IETF in person, just as the category 1. In the case of category 3, let me also go back to the IETF ticket situation. They also have different prices for remote participation. And it is true that the IETF provides free waivers, automatic free waivers for remote participation. However, the price for remote participation is not crazy expensive. What you get out of the experience is quite something. And so we will always encourage for people to pay for the tickets for remote participation. And so in this case, remote participants that are fellows that are participating in Argos clubs, we will cover for that ticket. Of course, transportation, accommodation does not apply. Now, when it comes to F&B, because you will be attending remotely from an Argos clubs, we will make sure to serve some food and snacks on site. And when it comes to category 4, the remote self-funded, again, this you could participate without paying the remote participation fee if you wanted to, because the free waiver is going to be automatic. We still encourage you to please consider to pay for the fee, again, because the IETF does a lot of work. The price is really reasonable when it comes to that remote participation, and you'll be supporting the community on itself. Obviously, transportation and accommodation also doesn't apply because it's going to be a remote participation. However, since you're going to be in the Argos clubs with category 3 as well, by all means, enjoy the food that is going to be served over there. We're not going to be discriminating between one thing and the other. I know that this information may be a lot, so we will be on top of that, updating the info page for the fellowship and trying to summarize all of this. The only objective as to which this seemingly complex matrix is because we want to make sure that regardless of your personal circumstances, we can try to help you. That's essentially the objective for this. We could, make it very simple for us and just have modality number 1 and ignore the others. But we feel that we will be leaving behind potential individuals who would still have a lot to contribute to the ecosystem, and make sense for them to participate, and we want to help for that. Now, the announcement of the cohort will be on the date that I was mentioning, and the procedure for that, we will be sending email notifications to the email that you have used for the registration, indicating very clearly whether you have been accepted or not, or prior to that, whether we find that there's some information that we require clarification about, and we will reach out as well with you. Once the cohort has been selected, the information will be also published in the info page of the fellowship, and we will also make a mention in our podcast. And with this, I'll pass the floor again to Pavel and Irena. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And wow, that was quite some information. And I know that a lot of our participants definitely should be having at least some questions or some clarifications if they would like to ask you, John. So, Irena, do we have any new questions in the chat or even in the Q&A? I do believe that a participant, Stephen, just joined in, so I'm not sure how much of the info he has caught, but I'm sure that Stephen, if you have any questions, please go ahead and unmute yourself or put them in the chat. And yeah, we have a couple of minutes for the final Q&A session, so please do not hesitate to ask any questions if you have.
So hello.
Hello, Stephen. Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. So please, I want to find out what this session recorded and what the recording be shared, because you quite remember I joined a bit late, and if I'm to ask, like, since I've missed most of it, so if it will be recorded and what the recording will make available.
Yes, Stephen. So the session is being recorded, and once we are done with our session today, we will make sure to share it with all the participants for the reference. John, you'll have the link, right? Yeah.
Yes. So the session will be posted on the info page of the fellowship. Irena, you may want to copy paste the 2 links as well for Stephen to see them on the chat. But it's basically the same info page where you may have found the information before.
Right. So, well, if you do not have any questions right now, then as John mentioned and as Irena has posted in the chat, please do visit our links for more information that you would need clarification on, or stuff that you may have missed from earlier today in the session. With that said, the next steps, we definitely encourage you to apply to the fellowship, and this is I would say a good opportunity for you to sit down and just reevaluate how much of a contribution or how much of an understanding you'd like to have of the technical standards that are provided by the IETF. And so, to wrap up, please share this opportunity and submit your applications. If you want to get involved beyond this application, please join our page for other opportunities. So we are currently looking for these positions, associate, intern, or even a volunteer. And if you feel like you are a good fit to, well, not just make a difference, but contribute and learn more about how you can, contribute to the data-centric digital rights, which is the core principles of our organizations, then please do visit the link, which is join.theiofoundation.org, and we will put it in the chat shortly. And with that, I will also definitely have to make a last-minute announcement that we are going to be restarting our podcast this year. It's called Protocol Watch, where we talk about technical standards, we talk about SDOs, and we talk about anything and everything related to internet governance issues and data-centric digital rights. You can find us on our socials, so of course on Facebook, X, Instagram, as well as on YouTube. So do check it. Do keep your eyes open for that one. And yes, all the information that is going to be available or is available on our website. It's a new website, so do check it out. It's called discover.theiofoundation.org. And well, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us in any of the emails that are provided, or even the links that are on the pages. So do go and check that out. And finally, so as we wrap up today's session, I want to leave you with a thought from an anonymous genius on our final side. So the quote says, "I'd love to change the world, but they won't give me the source code." Well, while we might not have the source code for the world just yet, the IO Foundation has the standards that runs on its communications. So this fellowship is your chance to help contribute and write those standards. So don't forget to visit, as I mentioned, discover.theiofoundation.org to get started. And with that said, thank you so much for joining this session, and I would like to officially close this session now if there are no more questions. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to all our participants.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.